Ahead and, yeah, go ahead and get started, and I'll back off just a little bit. So thanks for coming, and what we'll do is we'll start off with the order of agenda, which is item number 1. So there's a couple of changes on it, if we can do that. Kim is here from Moorhead, and that's item number 9, so we're going to move that up to number 2. And then number 11, which is the discussion item, we'll close out the meeting, adjourn the meeting, and then just continue with the discussion around that item, just like we did at our last meeting. So with those changes, a motion to approve would be good unless there's other changes.
Move to approve with the agenda changes.
Second? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. So last month, we were able to have a little bit of discussion on some artist education opportunities that Moorhead has been working on.
Minutes?
We'll do this first, and then
Okay.
do the minute.
Sorry.
So that Kim doesn't have to stick around.
Okay.
Now you broke my line of thought.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sure.
And we just had a few more questions, and I think Megan has done a little bit of investigating. But to tell you the truth, Kim, we're very excited about this. This fits really perfectly into the master plan that we have. So why don't do you want to just explain again a little bit about it? And
Sure. So in March of 2018, Forecast approached the Art and Culture Commission to see if we were interested. They were working on writing an NEA grant for this workshop that they've established. And so we said, sure, in concept, but we still have a few approvals, and they didn't know exactly how it would be shaped, and understood that since it was an NEA grant, that the funding wouldn't be until 2019. And so they received a partial funding for that grant that they were applying for. And so then they gave us an amended proposal, which included a request for $1,500 from the local governments where we would host a workshop for artists with a training for placing public art. And as we were talking in staff at the City of Moorhead, we thought what a great opportunity, since many of the artists that we have really do practice in the whole metro area, not just in Moorhead or not just in Fargo. And so we reached out to staff to see if there was interest. So thanks so much for entertaining the request to see if you're interested in partnering with this project. At the last Art and Culture Commission in Moorhead, they were really excited, but they wanted to make sure, just because I think that, as we see things, since they were the request, they wanted to host the event. So I would anticipate that we would probably host it at the Umcum Center, which has plenty of flexible meeting room and spaces. So just to give you a little bit of an update, that they wanted to host and be the lead. And as to what that means when we already have a consultant, I'm not sure, but the host was very important to them. So as for some of the details, we still don't know exactly when it'll be, when it will happen. We'll still work out those details once we can give them a firm answer on if we can do this. And it's still contingent on Moorhead City Council approval.
it does need Moorhead Council. Okay. So just a reminder, I think it's for 30 slots, is that right?
I believe so, and maybe there's some room for negotiation. I'm assuming that that's what they found is a good number during this project. They've said that they've worked with other communities doing these types of workshops before. I don't know exactly which cities right now off the top of my head, and so I would guess that that's just maybe their best judgment.
Questions, comments? And the request is for $750, right?
Yes.
Yep. One of the questions I think we had was, where would this come from our budget? And as I'm thinking, Megan, would it have to go beyond us for approval at all? No, because it's such a low amount. Okay. So And help me, remind me, where we were thinking of taking it out of which line item?
I don't know if we got that far, but in the packet, there is your approved 2019 budget. So you can take a look at what at least you had previously approved and allocated for kind of each of those pots of money.
Seems like we talked about this last time, and I can't remember.
I think we talked about, does it come out of 2018 or 2019 budget?
Yeah, was it use it or lose it?
Then we decided didn't matter, right?
My recollection is, I think we talked about, because we're so close to year end and closing out, that it would be allocated to 2019 dollars.
Okay, okay, thank you. I knew we had talked about it. All right, any questions?
Did we write down what questions we had last time? Can you go,
Yes.
can you
Yeah.
review those and maybe she can answer those? Because I can't exactly remember what those were.
Yeah, I'll maybe list what those questions are, and Kim and I did talk previously, but I'll just let Kim answer those. So some of the questions that came from the last meeting from you all was just more information about the workshop itself, and if it's 2 full days like the flyer noted, how are the artists selected, and is it 30? And then I think I asked a little bit more about application process, or who decides, and then is there a fee to artists, or is it free to them?
So I received a draft agreement from Forecast, and I've shared that with Megan as well. So she's got the best information that we have in correspondence with them. But they have an application process in which they go through, interested artists would apply, and then they, along with the local governments, so with our 2 organizations, if we do partner, would review those applications to see who would be able to participate. And it would be free to the artists.
Okay,
15 from each side of the river?
15 total, so $750 from each organization.
from each.
15
750.
people, I think is what you meant, right?
15 people from each side of the river?
I guess I hadn't even thought that far as to how we would determine that selection process.
All right, any other questions?
And the cities would be doing the marketing to get the word out to the artists, is that right? Okay.
As well as both cities, I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay. All right. A motion would be good if we're ready for that.
Make a motion. I make a motion to approve the $750 as requested.
Okay,
Second?
any further discussion? All those in favor say, oh,
Do we need to clarify what budget line it's coming from now, or will that be handled by staff?
2018 budget, whatever's left from that, right?
It'd be the 2019.
Oh, 19, I'm sorry. Wasn't hearing right. Okay, so we do need to decide what line item it comes from. Okay. Does it make sense just to allocate it out of evaluation research? I think that was kind of the, which one was the final kind of box or bucket that we threw it in? I think was evaluation research. That one's kind of not well-defined in regards to how we would use that.
I think that's kind of where we put that money that wasn't allocated.
Okay. Does that make sense, Megan?
I think so.
All right.
And this can, over this year, it can change, your commission can approve to make
Yeah.
changes to,
Is that under
Administrative.
administrative, though? Wouldn't it be
No,
under projects and
yeah,
programs?
It should be under project. I don't think
So
it's
would it
administrative.
fall under the blue one, public art projects? or-
What I'm talking about is just taking 750 out of the evaluation research and maybe having
moving
another
it to
line
something.
item somewhere.
Okay.
It's education in my mind, and it's a consultant that's actually being hired to do it, so I think it's fine under administrative as well. It's not really a project. Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you so much for coming, Kim.
You bet, thank you.
So on to then the next agenda item, approval of minutes. It's in your packet. A motion would be good. Anyone?
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next agenda item is a real interesting one. Brittany, you're going to tell us about it, right?
Yes. So this falls under public art possibilities. So a few weeks back, we were contacted by Hope Thier, and she's with the Blandon Art Museum. It's out of Fort Dodge, Iowa. And they had commissioned artist Guido Van Helten to create a mural on a silo that is going to become like a welcoming symbol to their community. They're doing a revitalization in this part of the town. And so what he's trying to accomplish is placing one mural in each state in the United States. And so far, he's done Crawford, Texas, Jacksonville, Florida, Fort Smith, Arkansas, Nashville, Tennessee, South Dakota, Iowa, and then he's also getting ready to start his mural in Mankato, Minnesota. So Hope kind of approached us to see if it was something that we would be interested in doing for the state of North Dakota. So I kind of did like an information gathering with her, and then also was able to get some contact information for Guido. I haven't received any word back yet from him, but what I have in your packets is just kind of some information about that. And then also on the screen behind you, and I can actually enlarge those if you'd like, it kind of gives you an idea of the work that he does. So instead of doing spray paint, he does a staining, and it's on concrete. And what that does is it gives it a longer longevity, so it's more like 15 to 20 years before it would need to be retouched or anything like that. He's a single artist. He does it all by himself. And so I have some numbers there for you just to give you kind of an idea of the investment that Fort Dodge did. It ended up being $133,000. Now, the project they did was massive. So it was a 110-foot silo, and it was 360 degrees, so it went around the entire silo. For his next project, he doesn't, from Hope's perspective, he doesn't want to do anything quite that large again. So he would do something considerably smaller, so that would also impact that budget number. And then also kind of give you an idea of how he pulls the images for that. He goes into the community, and he starts interviewing members of the community. So they do engagement sessions, outreach sessions, and really it's an information gathering session for him. He wants to understand the people that live there. He wants to know what the diversity is. What's the workforce like? Is it working class? Is it, is it steel, or is it, agriculture? What is the driving force for the economy there? And then also he looks at individuals that best represent the past, present, and future of that community. And then he also uses his artwork as educating the community on conceptual art. And if you'd like, I can blow those up for you. Does anybody have any questions?
Can you touch a little bit on Guido and our public art master plan?
Yes. So prior to contacting us, Guido and Hope actually went through the Fargo Public Art Master Plan and found that the sites of site possibilities kind of fits along with what he looks for a surface for his artwork. So that kind of led them to contacting us.
So in regards to this, it's a couple ways that this could be considered if we're interested in pursuing it. One is the capital project dollars that we have, which is 85. Another is embarking on some fundraising, which something like this, probably that might be a possibility. You know, a third way might be is to you know, look at some kind of, well, I was going to say sponsorship, but that's fundraising, basically. So there's some other ways that we could perhaps try to work this into our plan for the next few years. There is a 2-year time frame. Once he is actually contracted with, it takes about 2 years for it to get completed. So, you know, it's possible could split the costs between a couple of years as well. We may, in our fundraising, even look to the city commission if there were to be extra dollars to be allocated or something like that too. So the question today is, would there be some interest in pursuing this? And if so, what would be the best way to do that?
So I have a couple of questions. Did he find a surface he would want to do it on in Fargo, or he hasn't been here?
No, he has not been here. This is just an information gathering that I did. I would have to get in contact with him or his assistant and find out what his process is and how he would determine that.
And is his project he's working on now, does he have other ones in the queue, so we would, or would we be the next project?
I'm not sure. All I know is that Mankato, Minnesota, he's about to start that one. I'm not sure what his schedule is.
Yeah, because timeline would affect budget.
Perhaps what I should say is, you know, at this stage of the game, it is truly more information gathering. It's not, you know, we aren't going to know details until that is done. So it's an issue of, does it look enticing enough, interesting enough to pursue getting more information?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'm in agreement. I think it looks cool.
It looks interesting enough to get
Yeah.
more information.
I think that one is Faulkner, South Dakota, which is a little tiny dot of a town in South Dakota that raised the money to have that done.
Yeah, what did they say? It's just 1,100 people or something that live there? Or is it smaller than that? Even, it's quite small town.
The biggest question in my mind would be, where would it be? The appropriate surface.
Right.
That would also lead into funding.
I've been looking around town as I'm driving, and I've already found probably 4 or 5 places that it
Yeah.
could go.
Great.
I guess what I would want to know too is if he wants to do something smaller, what does that mean? You know, so in terms of,
I think it would probably be like half that size. Well, half of 110 feet.
so is that half of 133,000?
I don't know. I don't see, he would have to come up with those dollars, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, at ballpark, it'd be nice, sort of, just so we know what we're looking at.
It'd be less than 133.
Less than 100. Thank you. That is quite the ballpark.
If they're being placed in small towns, why Fargo?
Tell the story.
Okay, so Guido is Australian, and Fargo is very popular in Australia for all reasons, including the movie. But also they have like, I guess they just love the culture and the environment, and it's very popular there. And so from what Hope explained to me, he would be thrilled to have one of his murals in Fargo. So kind of like bragging rights when he goes home.
It raises his cool factor, John.
Right? Apparently. I was like, all right.
He's planning to do a book, and he wants this.
Yeah.
It's the film that has created
Right.
kind of a,
So eventually, what he'd like to do, according to Hope, is to compile all of photos of his murals and put it into like a coffee table book.
Can I play devil's advocate? Is there an expectation that our capital monies go towards local artists?
well, that's a good question. Yeah, and that might have to be considered. Yep. I don't know that it is necessarily, but
Yeah,
Um,
it's not expressly
yeah,
implied.
yeah.
Is it expected? We just may want to vet that a little bit, especially for our first capital.
yeah, except it's going to be a large project, and whether we have local artists that would have the ability and the skills to do a project of that scale, I don't know. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that would have to be discussed. Mark?
I think you partially answered this with his affinity for Fargo, but would we ever be in competition with other cities in North Dakota to get him to come here? And does that mean we need to act sooner before Bismarck gets wind of it, or Minot, or any other little place in North Dakota that might be
Right.
interested?
Yeah, right. So it's kind of a first come, first serve. So whomever shows the interest and has, I guess, some of the funding, or, I mean, that would be more of an information question to get from him. But there's nothing stopping Bismarck from doing it, or Grand Forks, because he's only going to do it in one place, one mural.
So is there more information that you can get out of him if we maybe make a motion to pursue this a little more? Is that?
Yeah, I can try and I can get a hold of him or his assistant.
Yeah, I
See
think
what his
there's,
process is.
it sounds to me like there's interest enough here to proceed. If you want to make a motion, that's fine too. Yep.
Yeah, so I can make a motion to continue the conversation, to get more details for us to make that decision and timeline.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I have one question. When it comes to discussion of subject matter, is that a decision that he comes up with, or is that through Fargo, or?
That is a decision he does. Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right. The next one, Brittany, is yours as well,
This is
reframing.
mine too. All right, so the Randy Hayes project. So the restoration has been complete on it. Last time we discussed this, I was going to bring you information on reframing estimates. If you remember, with the frame that's on it right now, the bottom, because it was water damaged, is also damaged on the bottom. So it does have to be, the frame does have to be replaced. So what I have for you, I was able to get two estimates for you. I was trying to procure a third one, kind of like in the middle, but unfortunately, due to the size of the piece, there's not a piece of plexiglass that is the size that is required. And we were looking at plexi that just had like UV in it, no other fancy things. So what we have here is just the basic, and then also what the conservator recommended. So with the basic, it's just a clear acrylic glazing, which is the plexiglass, no UV protection, and then everything that needs to go into it. So that's the foam core backing, because that needs to be replaced, all the bumpers, all the spacers, and any of the backing for the frame. If you look at the conservator's recommendation, it has all the bells and whistles. So you're looking at clear acrylic glazing that's has UV, static-free, anti-scratch, acid-free, and then all the materials that go within the framing. So the basic is $1,682.04, and then the conservator's recommendation is $4,331.50. Questions?
And your recommendation?
For the piece, since we've already put a considerable amount of money into this piece to get it restored, I feel that the conservator's recommendation may be a little bit much for the price, or for the value of the piece. If it was more of a high, like, what am I trying to say? If it was more like Picasso or something like that, then I would obviously go with the conservator's recommendations. I think for this piece, as long as it's hung in an area that, which would be like away from sunlight, away from doors opening, you know, it's not going to be exposed to fluctuations in temperatures or humidity. I think it would be fine if you just go with the basic.
It sounds like the UV's not permanent anyway.
No, it does break down over time, especially if it's exposed to certain kind of lighting.
Right.
The first notation underneath the quotes is that you can only find 48 by 96.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
That was for the second. So they were, the estimate, they were able to find the 53 by 83 in just basic, so nothing in it. And then they were also able to find it in the conservator's recommendation because that product is used so often by, you know, museums and conservation centers. What they were unable to find was that size, the 53 by 83, and a mid-range, which would just have the UV. So they were only able to find it in that mid-range at the 48 by 96.
Mid-range.
So is the difference in the clear acrylic the UV protection? Is that?
It's that acrylic. It's that
Okay.
plexi acrylic. That's the only difference.
And is the acrylic itself that's on the frame damaged, or just the wood, or whatever the bottom of the frame is?
We don't know if it had UV at one time or not. It's too small for the piece. So another part of when the conservator was looking over it and cleaning it up, she also noticed that the frame for it was too small, which was causing it to wave, because when it got wet, it had nowhere to expand to, which, if you notice, like paper, if it gets exposed to humidity or anything like that, even a piece of paper, it'll start getting waves in it. And so if the piece had been in a larger frame to accommodate that expansion, the waves wouldn't have appeared.
So it seems to be, there's a couple of questions here. One is there a place to hang this once we get it framed? Would we want to make sure there's some place to hang it before we would frame it? And then secondly, this isn't something we budgeted. So, you know, is it something we'd want to take out of something else again, or do we want to delay it?
I would delay it until we get it appraised, to see what the value of the piece is going to be.
We do have an appraisal on it. When we required it, when the ownership of it was transferred from Microsoft, there was an appraisal done,
And what's that amount?
$6,000.
And when was that done?
I don't have that date. It was within the last 5 years.
So where are we thinking of hanging it? In the new city hall or somewhere else?
We haven't selected a location for that yet.
Do we want to delay this item until we find out for sure if there's some place it can be hung? Because there's some specifications if we go with the cheaper end, less expensive end.
Not
And
sunlight, yeah.
whether there's a spot that would accommodate it?
Yeah, it would be a shame to frame it and then put it in a closet.
Yeah, yeah. And it could be stored, I would assume, for a while, Brittany? Laying flat someplace, or?
For a bit. I wouldn't do it long-term.
Okay, all right.
So the longer we wait, does that increase the damage on the piece? Or does that matter?
No, I mean, with the work that Diana Kleiss did, I mean, where it's at right now, it's fine. But we just don't want it to, like, sit there for years.
So whose job is it to find a place for it? Who makes that decision?
It would be,
Somebody on the staff?
I think our department would start discussions with our buildings and grounds, or who manages the building. So we can we can, in the upcoming months, start having that discussion to see if we can find suitable locations based on Brittany's recommendations.
Okay. All right, so what's the wishes of the commission?
Table until we find a, table until we find a location.
Okay,
I
All right.
agree.
Can we decide now between the basic and the conservator recommended?
good point. It'll make a difference as to whether, which place it could be placed in, so, yeah. Ready for a motion there?
I have one question
Yep.
as well. For there was a restoration done before, prior to this, right, on this piece?
It was
Repairs?
finished in, gosh, December?
Okay.
I wanna say December.
What's the expected lifespan of this restoration before this piece needs to be retouched up again?
If the conditions, if it's maintained right now, you shouldn't have to.
Okay, okay.
It's a pastel on paper, so the challenge with paper is that it's very finicky with moisture and, fluctuations in temperature. So as long as that's, maintained, then it shouldn't have any issues.
So with the difference between the two framings, or the two options that we're looking at, will the conservator's recommendation, will that aid in protecting that piece more than just the basic?
Yeah, I mean, any kind of protection on the acrylic is going to help it. I don't know that you need all of this for this piece. I don't want to tell you what to.
No, yeah,
I just don't
yeah.
think. I think it might be a little bit more too much for this piece. I mean, I think as long as a suitable place is found for it, I think it should be fine with the basic.
I guess what I'm getting at is that if we would put either 1,000 or 4,000 into a piece, that we would have to, not us, but down the road, 25 years from now, put another $1,000 or $5,000 into framing or restoring this piece again. I guess
I mean, you may in 25 years have to replace the acrylic on it. I mean, you'd have to do that with any artwork that you own at some point. I mean, it's going to break down.
Yeah. There's a difference though between 25 years and 75 years, or, the type of materials that they use, so.
So you said the value is 6,000, and is that after it was fixed from the water damage? Restored from the water
That was what it
damage?
was before.
So
It was
does-
appraised at, so it should still be at that amount.
It doesn't bring it down being water damaged?
It shouldn't really affect it too much.
I'm going to try push us along here because we don't want to spend too much more time here. Wishes of the commission? Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to do the basic framing, considering it's not like his recent work.
Okay.
I'd second that.
No. Mm-mm.
All right, and that would follow, however, identifying placement for, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? All right. The next one, appraisal update. Brittany.
Okay, so this is just an update. Mason Riddle will be doing the appraisal of the city's art collection. She will be doing, it's a process. So she's going to be documenting and then providing like an audit on the piece of 64 pieces out of 206 within the city's art collection. And then from there, based on your recommendations from the last meeting, she will be doing a full appraisal on the most significant pieces. And she will be here the last week of January.
All right, any questions? So, the Public Art Archives.
Yes, another update. So I've submitted all of the public art, the pieces of the city's art collection that are in public spaces to Public Art Archives. That's that online database for all public art all over the world. They're also going to implement a mobile app. I did speak with them last week, and they're working out some glitches with that. So if you try to log on from your phone, they're trying to make it more compatible. So that should be coming soon.
Questions? If not, we'll go on to this spring application update.
That's me again. So just going down the line. Okay, so we are now in the spring application period. A few months back, you had approved for the ACC to do 2 applications periods, the fall and the spring and the fall. And so right now we're in the spring, and with the deadline of March 1st. So a press release has gone out. We've also done an outreach list to all of those people, which is like about 187. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Questions? All right. Okay. Capital project update. Do we have an update on that?
Right now, we're working on getting a facilitator for discussions for that, and we are hoping to get a timeline update, so we should have some more details for you in the next couple weeks. Nothing as of right now, so.
The outreach that we talked about, had the discussion around last meeting, is included in your packet. And you'll notice each one of these, we missed or weren't able to complete the who's accountable or timeframe. And in talking with staff, I think what we'll do is we'll go through the rest of the action plan. We're going to do new ideas tonight, new ideas and projects. And then, once we've got all of that done, we'll go back and figure out who would be the logical place, or where would be the logical place for the accountability, as well as the time frame. So we'll just wait with those 2 items on every one of these discussions that we have. Other business?
I have one quick comment. This is going to be Brittany's last
Yes.
meeting. So I don't know if there's anything you want to say,
Yes,
but-
we were going to acknowledge that. Just want to thank you, Brittany, for helping us get off the ground. You have accomplished a lot this last year, or year and a half. How long has it been?
A year and a half.
Year and a half. Do you want to tell everybody where you're going and what you're doing,
Okay.
if you want to?
Yeah, sure. So I'm moving to Oahu, Hawaii.
Oh, my.
I know, it's so terrible. I'm really gonna miss the winters. So yeah, so my husband's active duty Army, so he's taking over a brigade on the island. Oh, I'm sorry, a battalion. I'm not a very good Army wife.
So we can come visit, right?
Of course you can. Of course. Absolutely.
Will you be in Hawaii longer than 18 months?
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. Maybe 2 years. Seems to be like our limit.
Well, again, thank you,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Glad to do it.
Yeah, and good luck.
Thank you.
and good luck, yes. Any other items? If not, we'll ask for a motion to adjourn, and then we'll go into our group work. Motion to adjourn?
I
Anyone?
would move to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, so those of you that have your back to that, if you want to